You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do. Hello, People-Centric leaders. Welcome to another episode of the People-Centric Podcast. Today, I have with me Don Harkey, who honestly has not been on one of these in a while. Hi,
It's been a
Don.
minute. It's been a minute. Yeah. I've emerged from the forest and the desert and come back to join you in a podcast.
Yeah, welcome back. We've had tons of good conversations, so I'm excited to have your perspective back on and hear what you have to say today.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great. And we also have the ever sunshine, amazing, positive person, Philip Herzog. Philip, I'm excited to have you on today as well.
Well, thank you. That's such an intro. I was going to say, if we compared, Dawn is like a good bourbon that's been sitting on the shelf for a minute. We're like, hey, we need to open the cap on that, get that back in this podcast. And if there's sunshine, and then Diana with just how you're going to guide us, lead us through this jungle of leadership, it'll be a good podcast.
It's going to be good. I have a feeling it's going to be good.
I know too much about bourbon, so when you said you pulled the cap off of the bourbon, I was
That's a bottled bourbon. Poor man's.
It's a $10 bourbon.
Yeah.
We will twist the cap right off that bottle of bourbon. If you're not a bourbon drinker,
All in one shot.
It's a cork. It's a cork.
Maybe that's the brand though. Maybe that's your brand, Don, is like cheap bourbon.
Yeah. If I was a bourbon, what would that bourbon be? Nice tie-in. Nice tie-in to our topic today.
Don will be a no cap in bourbon. That's exactly.
No cap in bourbon. But that does tie it to our topic today. Today, I wanted to bring up the concept of a personal brand because I weirdly think about this from time to time, and I've been thinking about it kind of recently in my own life. And so I wanted to bring it to the team and ask some questions about building a personal brand. And many years ago, when I started talking about my personal brand and thinking about my personal brand, I came up with the definition myself of just like, my brand is what people say about me when I'm not in the room. And I kind of think that's what branding is. It's like what people are thinking and feeling, your general vibe when you're not there. And so I know brand is like very broadly determined, but to me, that's what my brand is and how I'm curating that. So I wanted to get some feedback today and some I don't know, general discussion about creating a personal brand. So when I say that, what do you guys initially think about a personal brand?
It's a little terrifying. If you set it up like, because you think personal brand, like most personal brand presentations, like I like to wear blue shirts. I wear these glasses, and the glasses with my blue shirts tend to be my brand. And I try to show up relatively consistently. And it's a little funny if you look at my closet because it's all a bunch of different blue shirts that I'm trying to read. Like that's when you first think about brand. But when you broaden that definition to what other people say about you when you're not in the room, like what do other people say about me when I'm not in the room? I don't know what that looks like. Wow, that's a nice blue shirt. They probably say more than that. So that's a little scary.
Yeah, it is terrifying. It is terrifying for sure. For sure.
I like your question because it makes me think of what beyond the shirt color, what do people expect from me? What's their norm of expectations, right? Typically if someone leaves a room, and everyone turns around, it's like, well, that's exactly what we expected. Or like, oh, that's just Don being Don. That's Philip being Philip, Diana being Diana. That carries a lot. Or, wow, that's Diana being Diana. All the ways they say that is their expectations and assumptions of you in action.
Yeah, and it's more, Philip, I like how you said that. It's more than a perception. It's actually like your power is what strikes me too. Is if we come in like as a consultant that works with lots of organizations, if our brand is over time that we work with you, we come in, you're not sure what to expect. If we work with you over time and our brand becomes, oh, it's the consultants coming in again and they're going to work with us and they're going to push us and they're going to tell us things that we don't know and they're going to judge us on the outside and all those kinds of things. we're not going to be successful. We can't be as influential if our brand is, hey, they're going to walk next to us and they are going to challenge us a little bit, but they're also going to help us and they're going to be part of our team, not just outside of our team. Then that's different. So yeah, the personal branding things, that's why I go back to, it's a little terrifying. Like imagine being in a position where you could help somebody or help a company, but they won't let you because your personal brand is off. That's terrifying. So Diana, I can't wait to hear these insights.
Well, I first want to ask, sort of random question. Am I the weirdo that thinks about this? Or do other people think about this? Have you guys thought about what your personal brand is? And what are some questions that come to mind when you think about it? What are
You
some things?
you are a weirdo, and other people are thinking about this.
Okay, fair,
Well,
fair.
I don't. It's funny when you first suggest the topic. I'll be honest. I was like, okay, maybe. But then you immediately said like your definition of personal brand, and I think at People Centric we like to take popular topics but put our spin on it. And I think the spin on it is what people say about you when you're not in the room, not just what you look like. Boy, we just saw it. Philip and I were just kind of at a conference a couple weeks ago where they talked about an adjacent topic. They talked about executive presence, right? And it was a lot of it's like how do you shake hands and how do how do you look when you talk to people and that kind of stuff. And like that's important, but there's something bigger than that. There's something bigger than that that you're talking about here with personal brand. I like it a lot.
I was going to say, I think that idea too, another way I think of it is reputation, or again, that like the delivery. So to Don's point of power or the influence, do you have a reputation that leads with quality and that leads with moving things forward, or is it something else? So you're not the only one, and I'm sure everyone listening would say, "Oh my gosh, my worst nightmares are the fact that I'm, that people will see me and that my brand or reputation is destroyed, right? Or whatever that might be." So a lot of people think about this.
Your reputation precedes you, right? That's a common phrase, or it used to be. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. Your reputation precedes you, right? So, okay. So, having said all of that, I think my first question to you guys is if I challenged you to come up with your personal brand, what are some things you would think about? I know you talked about like, I wear blue shirts, right? But in this context, now what are some things you have to think about to develop your brand and what that looks like?
Well, I like that you said it's beyond the blue shirts because it's not just the blue shirts thing. I mean, blue shirts help. It goes a long way. I'm just saying. But I like the how do you want people to like the idea of like how do you want people to feel about you when you're not in the room? Like I can think about in my best moments, I want people to see me as being helpful, as being energizing, as being positive, as being somebody who's going to influence other people to take action and maybe take some risks and maybe think about some things differently, but also somebody that's not threatening. But I recognize when we think about it this way, if I lay it out of like that's what I want to be, then I have to think a little bit about in what moments do I do that counters that? When do I do? And I'm just even in this short conversation here as we're recording this, just to be really vulnerable. Like I'm thinking of moments that I've had even recently where I didn't perform that way. I didn't show up like that. And it was always because I was upset about something or I was focused on something else or whatever, and I forgot. Like overall, your personal brand is almost like your values. Like it's your values lived, maybe is another way of thinking about that. So yeah, it's not just the blue shirts.
Like even though Don and I are wearing blue shirts right now, different shades of blue.
And very similar glasses. Philip and I are, yeah.
That's
One of
right.
us is copying the other one. I'm not going to say who.
One of us, that's
Oh,
right.
look at Diana. There we go.
And
Diana's got
also
somewhere.
these tortoise shell glasses. It's a secret unspoken branding here.
They're very chic.
Very chic. If the folks in Tacoma do it, then we must be onto the right track. I was thinking, one way I would describe my personal brand or brand and reputation is I want my life to be a description of the things I care about and the things I hold close that are values. And so just very transparently also, if I live a life that looks like I'm just a checkers player, we use that description a lot where I'm just going, my next move for me is the most important next move. That can be an okay life, but I think both as an urgent optimist, as someone who believes in people and their potential, that there's an art to living well and playing chess. It doesn't mean I have it all figured out. So I'm one of many, many characters. And I think that plays then into the people you work with, the way you live in your neighborhood, the way you drive your car, how you do all these small things and big things. And so I think there's art to it, which is the cheater's way of saying, I don't know everything, but the art and the science of a brand, I think genuinely is, to Don's point, how you leave people and how you influence people. And hopefully it's not just when you leave the room, it's like when you leave a space, if you're no longer there for whatever that reason, like what's the impact that follows, even without you being present?
I love that. I love it's your values lived. I think that's really a powerful statement. So if your brand is sort of the like what people say about you when you leave the room, the impact you're leaving, how do you know what people are saying? Like how do you get that intel? How do you figure out what your brand currently is?
Well, Diana, I kind of want to throw that question back to you because it was your idea to launch this discussion, which I think is really good. And you've talked about this a lot and you've thought about this a lot. So I'm curious, like, how do you know, how did you get feedback that made you focus on yours? I'm curious because I want to learn from you.
Oh man, we're gonna have to go way back. We're gonna go way back in time to like young Diana.
Yeah,
Dawn, we have missed your sound effects. We haven't had sound effects. Man,
you're
tell you what.
welcome.
Thank you.
Sound effects.
God. Okay, so
Well,
I'm
we
gonna
know
go way back.
that's a part of Harky's brand for sure. Just the note. You don't need emojis when you've got the sound effects.
So true.
I made those with my mouth too. That was not like a button. I made those with my mouth.
Good job, Don. We can cut all of this out. Anyway, we'll keep it. We'll keep it. It's authentic. It's real. Okay, so I'm gonna go way back to when I first started thinking about this particular topic. It was when I had first joined People Centric, and I realized that being on such a small team in such a small town in such an odd space that I had to represent what we did really well, and that everything I did tied back to the company, which tied back to sales, which tied back to our livelihood. And so it was like this very big, I don't know, I felt like it was a crisis at the time. I was very like anxious about how to show up well in this new space, in this new world, and like driving sales and making sure that we are authentic and building not just my brand, but the people centric brand and all of those things. And I was having, a tough time reconciling all of those things. And so I really did start listening to what people were saying about me, right? Like in different spaces of like, oh, Diana's really good at this thing, or even in check-ins and feedback from the team, like, oh, Diana, you kind of did this and it was not very cool, right? And so I started hearing different sides of things, like Diana's very competent in these things and Diana should be working on this and doing this better. And I started hearing all of these things and thought, okay, if this is what people are saying about me when I'm not in the room, how do I make sure that how I want to show up is how I am showing up, and then that's translating to others? And so I started doing things like putting aside my computer and focusing on the human when they were speaking. I started asking questions before I dove into all of the problems, right? I adjusted my interface so that people felt the way I wanted them to feel when they were interacting with me. And yeah, I don't know. I started thinking about it again when I moved to Tacoma. Like, how do I need to show up here? And how do I make sure people know that I'm an expert in this space, even though my company is all the way across the country and I don't have a team anymore? And like, how does my brand affect my husband and his work, right? All of these things like weirdly connect in my brain. And I really wanted to also make sure that my authenticity was there, right? I don't want to be fake. I want to be authentically me, but know that my authenticity impacts others and how my interface impacts others. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, Don. I don't know.
I think it's really good because it talks about like the journey. So you were in a new situation both times and you were trying to figure out how this is an opportunity for me to show up the way I really want to deliberately show up. And I like that you dropped in at the end, like, but I still want to be authentic. I still want to be within myself.
Yeah,
I've got to be who I am. But you also, I liked some of the things that you talked about. It could be sound manipulative, right? It's
totally.
if it's not authentic, then it could be manipulative.
Totally.
in terms of
Yeah.
that. Like I actually hate everybody, but I'm going to show up like I like everybody. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
a different thing.
Yeah.
But so then how did you know, how did you like you talked about your brand, how you want to show up, you didn't like some of it. How did you know what other people were thinking of you?
To be honest, I did ask some really trusted people, right? I asked Bethany Bishop. I don't, she may still listen. I don't know. She was a trusted advisor to me for a long time. I asked several friends, like, what do you hear about me? And then I also was highly in tune to how the opportunities I got and the opportunities I didn't get and why I got them or why I didn't get them. And so I think there were some opportunities that I didn't get that I really, really wanted. And it was because my personal brand was negative at the time, or someone had said like, well, she has very high standards and she was mean or she was aggressive or assertive or whatever you want to call it. Like there were times that my authenticity uh, was not very empathetic to how my authenticity showed up on others. And so I always say, like, authenticity without empathy is selfish. And so I adjusted that and had to really learn how my interface affects others. And so yeah, I just sort of I was paying attention to all the cues, all the little things to determine what it actually was.
Your quote, authenticity without empathy is selfish.
Yeah, someone said that to me in like 10 years ago. It was Linda Ramey Gravy. She said that to me 10 years ago. And yeah, it impacted how I show up for sure.
How did the first time you heard that, did it land 10 years ago? 10 years previous, Diana, did it land well or did it land hard?
It land If you know Linda, it landed very hard. And she said it in a way that I think she wanted it to be shocking, right? She was like, you being authentic hurts people. You're being selfish, right? Like you have to remember that how you show up impacts other people. And so when she said that to me, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like I didn't think of it that way. I only thought of it as like, I'm being authentic. And then it was like, but if you authentically don't want to hurt people, which I didn't, then you need to figure out how to do that well. How your authenticity and how you show up to others impacts others.
Yeah, that's really powerful because if you're listening to this and you're, let's say you're an employee inside of a company and you're really frustrated with how things go on, you have to recognize that that is also probably impacting your brand and how you show up, which may be decreasing your ability to influence the company in the way you want to influence it.
Yeah,
I know I've done that. When we had a discussion, we always talk about the topic before we jump on. We have
we
a
do.
topic, so we're a
A
little
little bit.
prepared. We were having a topic about, my engagement in the community, and Philip was giving me some really good feedback that talked about, how I feel about the community. I tend to be pretty open with how I feel about things. And when I've expressed frustration, and ironically, sometimes it puts me in a spot if I don't express it the right way to be less influential in the community, which is frustrating. It's like a spiral. You go down the wrong road. So you're right. You have to kind of check yourself sometimes in moments when you're the most frustrated or you most want to influence something on the brand. Because it also strikes me, Diana, what you said is like your brand, what people say about you lags behind your behavior. So people might be still responding from things that happened years before. I mean, weeks, months, years before. And it's like, well, I've changed that. And we have to sometimes be patient and play the long play because your brand is established over a long period of time, usually, generally, right?
Yeah, and I do think that things that I did, I mean, even in my 20s and early 30s, I'm in my 40s now. Like I think it still sometimes pops back up and I have to like combat that a little bit still to this day, to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing how that comes back around. It does, and that's frustrating. And then you get that, and you're like, well, if that's going to be true, then just forget it, And you're like, well, then you're showing up and you're feeding the bad brand,
Yeah.
the bad version of yourself.
Yeah. So towards the end of this conversation, I just sort of want to ask you guys, like, what are some things that we should be doing to generate our own brand? What are things we should think about? How are ways we should act? What are some tips and tricks to get people to their authentic brand?
I was as in your story and just a lot of what we've talked about, I think that brand is essentially the story of who you're for, and that who could be the people that you serve. That's also like what you are about, the values that you bring forward. You know, when I think of a brand, our friends in India, when we went to go visit our friends Yatin and Shaka in India, I always loved it because they would always talk about products as brands. So when we were walking around, whether it was a pharmacy, down to the rug markets, everywhere, they would say, "Oh, this is a good brand. This is a good brand." And then they would describe what it was best used for. And I think that ties in really well to your reputation then. It's what are you best used for? Who do you serve? Where does it make sense to plug you in, right? We all have favorite brands for that reason. And so I think helping that be really clear, Diana, your story, I think, shows you had a great brand, you had a great product, which was you, but the product was challenged, right? Because it wouldn't apply well. And so, one, I would say listen to the words that you use to describe yourself, who you're for, and what you're about. And then two, listen to the way other people describe you or your company and what they're for and about. And both of those can point to the effectiveness or clarity of your brand. And if you don't like what you hear, consider ways to change that.
Yeah, and I like the idea of being deliberate about it and then getting feedback on it. You know, the engineer in me wants to collect data and then adjust the data, right? So you have to collect a vision, like what's the target? What are we trying to set as a goal? What kind of influence do we want to have? And you know, we've done a lot of discussion about like our mission, our purpose as a company. I've done a lot of work of thinking about my own mission and what I want to do and how I want to influence others. So then you translate that of what do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room, and then what behaviors contribute to that and what behaviors would take away from that. And then you just be honest with yourself and have an open conversation to be able to say, when do I do a good job of that? When do I not do a good job of that? And then probably using the trusted circles that you have who will tell you when your baby's ugly to tell you, "Yeah, you're not living up to that brand. You're not living up to that brand." Both of you are both pretty close to me, and both of you have called me out at times to say, like, Don, you can do better than that. Like you can do better in those times. And you know that I do when I'm not showing up well, it's for good reasons, but it's still not showing up well. And so we have to take that, and then we have to forgive ourselves for it and adjust and get back on center within our own brand. So I like that. I like that process of being deliberate about it and thinking about it.
Yeah. What other things should we talk about in developing a personal brand? What have we not touched on that we should?
Well, it just strikes me, brand is like culture. It's like a personal culture almost. Like we also often say culture is what happens when you're not in the room. Like when we train managers, we talk about that. We also say you have a culture whether you want to or not. So if you haven't tried, if you say, well, I don't have a personal brand. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You actually do. And if your personal brand has been like to not have a brand, that's your brand. It's what do people say about you when you're in the room? And maybe you're like, well, I don't know if people notice me when I'm in the room. That's your brand. You know, if you want to be more noticeable, you're in the room. What would you do to change that in a positive way, right? So yeah, I think that's just one more point that strikes me in terms of we talk a lot about culture, and I think brand is like your personal culture. I like this topic a lot.
The last thing I think I'll add to that, I love that idea of personal culture. And with that, it's the what rooms are you being invited to? That might say a lot of, if you're not being invited, that doesn't mean you're failing or bad, but the invitations, who extends them, how they're asked, and how you say yes or no. I think that shows a lot about, again, your own brand, that story of who are you for? That helps answer those next steps.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'll say that I think about this in terms of my effectiveness, right? If I want to help people and do the things and move projects forward and create positive change, if I want that to happen, my brand helps that be effective. And so I think to Don's point, it's like, yeah, this could sound manipulative, right? But to me, it's more about how effective can I be in the rooms where I need to be? And your brand and how you show up and your authenticity and all of those things affect your effectiveness and leadership. And so if you want to adjust that and do that better, you might want to look at your brand.
Yeah, your power.
It's your power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate this conversation. Please bring us other topics. If you guys have questions about brand or you want to talk more about this, let us know. Listen to the outro on how to get a hold of us. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.